What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the SANDCAST, presented by our good buddies over at Wilson. Thank you for providing our volleyballs. And also volleyballmag.com, where we get all our volleyball news. Today, we got a special guest, a coach, ex-indoor player, ex-indoor Olympian, gold medalist, good old Rich Lambourne. Rich, welcome.
I'm not sure I appreciate you throwing old in there, but it's accurate, so I can't fault you too much. Nice to be here, guys. Thanks.
Older. You look good, though. You look young.
Thank you.
And we missed former pro beach player, too. You did play 2 AVPs, as I saw in your BBB. With
two matches.
With
two matches.
Oh, my bad.
I played 2 matches in 1 AVP and lost both. 0-2 is my official AVP record.
I was cracking up when I saw that you played with John Bronstein.
Yeah.
I freaking love Bronny. He was one of the first guys I met when I moved here.
Yeah, he's awesome. He's
great.
awesome. He used to be, at the time, he was the top CBVA guy, like the top AAA guy in California. Yeah, he was a great player. Especially, he's like a 6'1" guy, but could just
cut shots
cut
for
you
days.
up. Yeah. You had to essentially be standing on the 4-foot line cross court to get that thing. And it was big court back then, and so we essentially survived on serving. And this was the Seal Beach, I think the 2000 Seal Beach Open. And we played Mike Whitmarsh and Canyon Seaman in the first match.
Dream draw.
Yeah, we got 9 points. It was 15-9, just one set to 15. And it's debatable how much effort they had to lay out to, give up 9 points to us. That was like a moral victory from our side. And then we played Matt Unger and Matt Lyles. I don't know if you know either of them. Matt Lyles was a national champion at Long Beach State and one of the best serve-receive guys probably ever. If he'd grown up in the Libero era, he would have been an amazing Libero. And then Matt Unger was a setter at Northridge.
I've heard that name.
Yeah, you know the name. He and his brother both played. He was part of the 1993 Northridge team that was in the finals against UCLA. And he played in front of Geeter.
Oh,
and
nice.
Yeah, one of my favorite all-time Geeter quotes is, we're playing for Fletch in the 6-man, and Geeter's doing his pregame pump-up speech, and he always kind of singles a guy out, right? And he says to Unger, his great friend since their college days, he goes, "I gave up 24 years of my prime to you. You owe me this match," right? It was fantastic, yeah. So we lost to those guys in, I don't know what conditions that were probably similar to today, real windy, and it was like 5-0, 5-5, 10-5, 10-10, 15-10. Yeah, and we got the wrong side of that, so we lost 15-10, and that concludes my AVP career. Thank you guys.
Extensive career. I would love to see you and Geeter on the mic together. The sarcasm would be flowing.
It would be. We actually had the chance briefly in Huntington, in the AVP/FIVB Huntington
This
event
past year?
Last year, I got to do a match or two with Stoklos, which is always fun, and then I got to do, I think, just one match with Geeter. Unfortunately, it was the match that Jake and Taylor lost to John Mayer and Trevor.
Right.
So, our success rate as far as my team goes with Geeter and myself on the mic is not good, and we might want to avoid that. But it was certainly fun. Anytime you can just be around that guy, in my opinion, it's awesome. And certainly learning anything that he's got to teach you microphone-wise is...
Yeah. I feel like I got to do a Crabb on Crabb match in the Manhattan Open, 2 years ago or something with Geeter. I felt like I was just learning as I went.
Right.
He's like, we're doing the normal, things that I was used to on the mic, and then he just kind of turns his chair and starts looking at me. He's not even looking at the match, and we just start having a face-to-face conversation. I was like, oh, is this what we're supposed to... Oh, hey.
Right.
But then he brings it back to the match and tells you about a story 15 years ago about that guy and his dad, and just pulls it off the top of his head, even though he's fully his real job is basketball now.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Well, it's fascinating to me because if you watch him on the Lakers, the show that he does with James Worthy and Robert Horry, for crying out loud. I mean,
Big shot, Bob.
Yeah, his knowledge of that sport and its history is unbelievable. But I mean, he has that same knowledge of history and everything in volleyball as well.
Yeah.
I mean, just the capacity of his brain, at least for statistical stuff, is unbelievable. I can't remember what I did yesterday. This guy remembers like individual people's statistics from years and years ago.
Especially the players that were like on tour. I think, so Jake was playing in that match, and he's like, obviously he knows everyone's like birthday and like middle name and their mom's name. And funny story about his brother and like all this crazy stuff. I'm like, you haven't even been the announcer on tour for a decade.
Right.
And you're still busting out all this.
Yeah.
You're just putting us all to shame right now.
It's just in the vault. Yeah. Well, it's funny you bring up Jake because a while back Jake posted some video of himself in high school, I think back in Utah playing
so great.
Oh, you remember that video?
Yeah.
And he blocks someone and he looks so goofy with the long hair and and Geeter saw that and referred to it as a Muskegon tree stuffing, which was like some reference to something Jake had done at the Muskegon tournament, AVP tournament, years and years and years later. But just, that's what it conjured up in his mind, It's really quite unbelievable. I loved his intros because he would tell you about you.
Right, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, like, people are like, wow, this guy sounds, oh, wait, that's me. And then just be all jazzed up and run out, and then do it to the next guy. Like, he had a way of pumping all four guys up without playing favorites, which is pretty hard to do, right?
Yeah, that was really cool.
Yeah. Well, while on the topic sort of Jake, you're working with a very different type of Jake Gibb now, not the mop top high school kind of Bambi leg kid. So how are things going in the 2019 season so far? I'm sure that did Fort Lauderdale kind of shake up the training schedule a little bit?
Yes, it did, but I would argue that it shook it up in a positive way for us because both of my guys were out of town for almost the entirety of December. Jake went down to New Zealand with his family, where Jason Lockhead got married down there. So they did that and then kind of stayed and went to Australia and, did some sightseeing for a couple weeks. And then T. Crabs was in the island. I don't know that that's really like taking time off because I know you guys play.
Well, he plays everywhere he goes.
He plays everywhere he goes, yeah.
2-man, 1-man, 5-man.
There's no getting away from it because Chris Crabb's out on the courts every day, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So family time is volleyball time.
Yeah, totally.
But, so that was going to mean that January was kind of like a cram session for us leading into Fort Lauderdale. Fortunately, we don't have to do that. I mean, it's a disappointment for sure that tournament is not happening, especially being a 5-star.
Right.
But, we have like some physical issues that we would like longer periods of time to help recover, so forth. So it ended up being a good thing for us because now we don't have anything till mid-March.
Right. So is Doha first one on the calendar?
I think so. We're debating Sydney, depending on whether it maintains its star rating or not. I mean, it keeps sliding down the scale, unfortunately. It's good to get competitive reps in if you can and if it sort of makes sense from a travel standpoint. It's strange. I don't know if you guys are experiencing this with trying to put together your schedule or not. Like, we had it all mapped out and then Florida got removed and somehow that seemed to like throw our whole year off kilter, even though it was kind of a one-off 6 weeks before the next one.
Well, there was another Florida, right? So there was a 3-star we had the choice of playing in Florida.
Right.
And then there was Texas.
There was a Texas and then a Los Angeles.
Yeah,
all got taken down.
Those were later, I think.
Those were later.
Yeah, dude, the schedule, it's like, can FIVB just give us a little bit of a break and maybe make the travel schedule, like, go around the globe?
Yeah.
Rather than, like, halfway around one way, back around, down to the southern hemisphere, back to the north.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is kind of an issue in the sport of beach volleyball, right, that you have individual promoters. So if you're promoting your event, you have very little, if any, concern for anyone else's event. You just have to figure out what works for you and how you're going to generate the funds and whatever. So it's unfortunate. You understand it from their side. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I'm in agreement with you. It'd be nice if we could go one way and not go Brazil, China, over Portugal, Japan, whatever. Yeah. Whatever those stops are.
I think that's exactly the beginning of our year, right?
Right. Ugh. It's pretty intense.
I think the tennis tour does. They go more in order. Like if we could go knock out Europe in one go, that'd be pretty nice, right? And then we kind of go do the Asias and then make our way around.
They're also,
the world,
they also have the luxury of playing in some indoor venues, so they can kind of work around times.
A little more money in the sport.
A little more money in the sport. Yeah. Well, I mean, golf certainly does that in this country too, right? Mm-hmm. Early in the year, they do the Hawaii, and then they're Florida and kind of Texas and California and whatever. But
flying first class around the U.S. doesn't seem that hard.
It's not even first class. It's like your own. All those guys
their
are
own
like
jet.
Net jets or
Spirit Airlines, baby.
Oh, we're here. Damn it! It's just getting comfy.
So this is what, your second year, kind of being full-time coach?
No.
No, I've been doing it for several years now. I started in 2014.
Okay.
I was just done with the indoor team, and it worked out that Tyler was working with Jake and Casey and, Emily Day and Summer Ross at the time. And so for those who aren't familiar with the USA system, each team, if you're in the top 3 within the USA program, or top 4, I guess, can assign a coach that can travel with them. So since he had 2, there was an open spot there where, he was signed up with them and, making the coaching stipend or whatever. But it was an opportunity for me to work with him and work with those teams and still travel with them as well. So I kind of got my feet wet that way, worked with Emily and Jen Kessie the following year, Theo and Casey after that, and and then now Jake and Taylor.
So have you kind of settled in? Because I know a lot of times when athletes take on coaching roles, and you were like a phenomenal athlete for a long time, what was the adjustment like going from playing to getting into that coaching role? Because we've talked to Jose about it a little bit, and he said that you really have to kill the player in you to become the coach. Did that take a while to phase in and out?
Yeah, I mean, he would have maybe certainly a different and probably a better perspective on that, simply because he's one of the all-time greatest in this particular sport. So I played indoor volleyball exclusively, so I don't have anything in me that thinks I'm a better player on any level than anyone I'm working with on the beach. I played enough. I got my AAA a couple times and had a storied AVP career, as we've discussed. But there's not for Jose, that absolutely has to be a difficult thing to go I was out here beating up fools like this who are now getting whatever finish. Right. That's tough to deal with. To give you a little bit of frame of reference from my perspective on that, one of the most beneficial conversations I ever had with a coach was Hugh McCutcheon, who was our coach in 2008 when we won the gold medal. He told me that I needed to get rid of any existence of this outside hitter that existed in my head if I wanted to be as good of a libero as I could be. Because in college, I went to BYU. I played outside hitter because libero wasn't even a thing, fortunately, so I got to play in the front row. But then, fortunately it did exist because I wasn't good enough at that position to play the international level for the national team anyways, right? But I'd go play in these places overseas, Belgium and Austria and wherever, and play with these guys who were outside hitters, and I'm like, dude, for sure, I'm better than this guy. And by nature of the position, they're probably making more money than I am. Right. And so that was really that was difficult for me mentally.
Right.
But he was like, look, if your goal is to make as much money as you can, you entertain that and try and get on somewhere as an outside hitter. But if your goal is to be as good a libero as you can be for the USA team, which is what my goal was, you need to forget about that, and you need to invest wholly in trying to be the best libero you can be over there in this gym, so on and so forth. And so that was such a great call by him, and something that was so pivotal to my development in that position. And so probably that is similar in a way to what Jose's talking about. Like, I have to forget about comparing myself, one of the all-time greatest players, to these guys that are playing now, and just figure out how to make Bourne the best Bourne he can be out there.
Right.
We're now going to take a quick second for a word from our sponsors. And before we do, we just wanted to thank you guys, as always, for listening. You are what keeps the show going on. Now, if you want to do us a huge favor and drop us a review on iTunes or Podbean, we would greatly appreciate it. If not, support our sponsors. They're the ones who also keep the show going, so any support in any way we appreciate. So here's a word from our sponsors on SANDCAST. This show has been brought to you by Firefly Recovery. Now, I know that I have done a terrible job with my recovery all season long, which is why I'm a huge fan of Firefly. I always thought recovery, you had to go get a massage, it had to be an hour-long thing, but it doesn't. With Firefly, all you have to do is just strap this thing on to your knee, which is what's been bugging me, and you can strap it on at work, so you can do your recovery while you're getting paid and doing your work. You can strap it on during an airplane, which is exactly what I did on my way to Maryland for New Year's and Christmas. You can bring it on the way back from the plane. You can do it in the car ride. You can recover on the go, doing whatever you want, which is exactly why I love Firefly. It does everything that you would need it to do. It moves the blood flow down there, and you're naturally recovering. You don't need these enormous Normatec boots and be grounded. You can do it on the move, on the go. It's a huge help for me with how much you have to lift and play beach volleyball. I highly recommend Firefly Recovery, so check them out. If you are an athlete, if you are just a weekend warrior looking to get that soreness out of your muscles, Firefly is the way to go. So hit them up at fireflyrecovery.com. Give them a try. I highly recommend it. This podcast is also brought to you by Wilson Volleyball. I know if you've been following beach volleyball players on Instagram lately, there's a lot of complaints about how difficult it is to play with the dreaded Mikasa, which is used on the international tours. But if you're not playing internationally, and if you're not playing P1440, whose season won't be rolling around till late fall anyway, we are back to using the Wilson, people, so hallelujah and celebrating that. So if you need a refill on Wilson balls, they are the best balls in the market, and best thing yet, we give you a 20% discount here at SANDCAST if you use the discount code WilsonSAN. By far the best ball. The college players use it. The AVP uses it. Almost every grassroots tour uses it. The CBVA rocks it. There's a reason that everyone uses Wilson. It's the best ball in the market. Highly recommend you pick up a bag of Wilsons today, especially if you want to use our Wilson code, WilsonSAN. So go ahead and get yourself a bag of volleyballs today or any other equipment you might need.
I'm sure you probably brought a fair amount of that defense, though, to Taylor. I mean, you look at Taylor's game, and he's...
I do take full credit for Taylor's game.
Absolutely.
No, I mean, I think, I don't know, what's been interesting to me, and to kind of circle back to your original question about adjustments coming out to coaching from playing, I mean, it's been a huge and ongoing learning process for me because I don't have personal professional frame of reference to the game where, you know, like Jose has however many years, 20 years of repetitions and tournaments and all this stuff that he went through in this particular discipline of the sport. And I don't. I have, I think, some technical expertise that has a high degree of transfer that I can bring. But the rest of it, strategy and how do we accomplish, you know, getting that team out of system, or how do we accomplish putting them in positions we want them to be in that we feel are advantageous for us. You know, it's vastly different outside than it is inside. So all that stuff is stuff I had to learn, stuff I'm absolutely still learning, stuff that's constantly evolving. Even if we know it all today, tomorrow it could be different, right? And so that's been the challenging and in a lot of ways fun part for me, and then just trying to apply whatever my knowledge may or may not be to that.
Right.
What was kind of the mindset coming in when you obviously, like you just said, you didn't have the beach experience, but now you're going in and you're coaching Jake Gibb, who's like alone one of the best volleyball minds in the sport. And he's a blocker, like stuff that it's almost opposite, but obviously for however many years now, he's wanted you as his coach. What was kind of the approach there?
Well, yeah, I mean, certainly I don't approach coaching as like, hey,
here's what you do.
I'm the boss. Yeah, here's what you need to do.
Right.
We have, I think, a pretty good vibe within our team that it's collaborative. You know what I mean? It's not like me saying stuff. It's like us talking about things and kind of collectively deciding how do we want to go into this match? How do we want to play against this player? And certainly by nature of the fact that both of my players have a much greater wealth of experience than I do in playing the sport, I defer to them. I can watch video, I can watch a match and, see things or think I see things and go, hey, guys, this is what it looks like to me. What do you think? And, Taylor's out on the court trying to play defense against a guy. Jake's out on the court trying to block. If you've watched volleyball, it's a lot easier to sit in a chair over here and go, oh, line or whatever, right?
Just pass it tighter.
Yeah, or whatever, right? Because you can see this guy doing this and you don't have to physically react. There's a much greater degree of difficulty, obviously, if I have to try and interpret both visually and mentally and then physically respond to that. So I always defer to those guys, but I try and bring whatever I have to them, and then they kind of like fill in the gaps with, in Jake's case, 20 years of experience at the highest levels. And and in Taylor's relatively short career, how much amazing stuff has he already done? So I'm never going, no, let's do this. I'm kind of saying, hey, here's what I think. What do you think? And then let's decide so we're all on the same page. Simply, I think that's important because if that works, great. We can kind of make a notation of that and then know next time like that worked for us. And if it didn't, we know that didn't work, so we can kind of adjust from there. But if you're thinking this and I'm thinking this and he's thinking the other thing and then something doesn't work, how do we know where to start fixing stuff, right?
I'm really curious, what is a timeout like with you in the box with Jake and Taylor? Because they're such different personalities.
Yeah.
So, what is it? How does the narrative go in there? Is it mostly you and Jake talking and Taylor just kind of nodding along, just knowing that he's going to get a dig anyway?
Well, yeah. It depends on, if you're talking about a timeout that we've had to call because we're down.
Right.
Oftentimes, pretty much all I'm going to say, unless there's something specific that stands out that we can go like, hey, it looks like they're doing this to us. Let's be wary of that. I like the notion of kind of narrowing our focus if we get in some sort of rut, whether it's side out or otherwise. Because you hear a lot of teams go, okay, hey, let's just side out here. But we can narrow it further than that, right?
Yeah.
We can go like, hey, let's pass this ball, then let's set this ball, then let's spike this ball. Let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. Let's not go, hey, we side out here and then the score is this, and then we're only 2 points down or whatever, right? Like you're kind of putting the cart before the horse, so to speak. And so I like to try and bring us in like that just a little bit. Yeah, and then, again, it's kind of up to them. Jake oftentimes has an insight or, they're very good too at taking blame sounds like a terrible way to say it, but taking responsibility is maybe a better way to say it. Hey, I'm not doing this. I'll be better going out of this timeout with this or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so again, it's a little bit collaborative. I'll just try and get us to think about narrowing our focus. Usually each guy has something that they're going to pick up or they claim they're going to pick up. And then we go and try and do it.
Yeah. I feel like over accountability is a good problem to have on a team.
Yeah. It's, we all have seen plenty of examples of guys, especially in beach for some reason, it seems like, I make a mistake and then I glance menacingly at my partner, right? Like that was his fault.
So much. It says so much. You might as well just say it out loud.
Yeah, it's interesting though. I was not great at that during my playing career. I could have been a lot better at, I think I was a good team guy and that I wasn't like selfishly motivated, like, oh, I need all the adulation and all that stuff. But I could have been better at kind of not burying a guy, like realizing that if I bury you as my partner, that's actually hurting me.
Right.
Right. So it's very, like, I feel like I'm being self-serving in a way, like everyone sees that wasn't my fault, but I'm really hurting myself ultimately by dragging my team down.
Yeah.
And so I'm very fortunate to work with guys who don't do that on any level, like quite the opposite almost, right? Like if Taylor hits a ball out, Jake's quick to go, that's a bad set, and vice versa, right?
Yeah.
And so that's unfortunately probably unique in today's day and age.
Yeah.
Certainly on the men's side, I think women don't quite do that as much, but we know plenty of examples on the guys' side of partner barriers.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Partner barriers. Yeah, there's. I have to agree with that. I mean, it's just like the smallest things that you can see. I mean, internationally, probably the worst teams I've seen. Some of these, there's like teams that would fully just fall apart and quit in the middle of matches, and it's mostly just because of those small, subtle things. Like, say a guy hits in the net and he kind of drops his shoulders and turns the other way.
Right.
Stuff like that, and then the partner looks at him, like, gives him a little something, and now the whole crowd and the opponents and everybody's kind of just watching their little drama unfold, and all they did was kind of like give little subtle body language things, and the whole match falls apart.
Well, yeah, and as a competitor, when you see that across the net from you, you start licking your chops a little bit, right? And it can be part of your scouting report. Let's see if we can get these guys chirping at each other. The teams that are kind of susceptible to that type of behavior.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, it's nice to not have to deal with that too much.
Yeah. Do you ever get the itch to play anymore, or is that kind of...
No, again, that's, like I was saying in regards to Jose, like, never at any point in my life have I been at the level of Try or anybody that's out on the world tour. So it's not like I'm going like, dang, I want to get out there.
That should be me out there.
Yeah. Tyler, for example, Tyler Hildebrand was a lot better beach player than I was and has a lot better AVP record than I do. And so I think he deals with that sometimes.
Yeah.
Especially he was kind of the direct opposite of me in the sense that his career was cut short due to some physical issues, and I was very fortunate to have very few, if any, throughout my career. So I was extremely lucky.
Libero probably helped you a bit there as well.
It did. Even in college, like when I was swinging at balls and, I don't know if you can call it jumping. I was sort of leaving the floor temporarily.
You probably had 40 pounds less back then?
yeah. I was stoked to be around 200 in college. So I don't really get that. It's just because I don't on any level think that I would be competitive with what I'm seeing on the court. You know what I mean?
I can see that inner fire burning in Tyler a bit.
Yeah.
But he does a really good job of bringing it together and all right, I'm here to help. I'm here to coach and be as good as I can be as a coach. Yeah. But you can see it under there, wanting to come out for sure.
It comes out too in just kind of his celebrations. When his people do well, right? You can feel that little bit of living vicariously vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking of Tyler, you actually help coach the national team as well, which it's nice for me because I get to steal a little bit of knowledge when I come to the national team practices from you, who's probably my biggest opponent.
Right.
My biggest opponent's coach. What's kind of the mindset there for you, helping all the teams, helping Hildebrand with what he's trying to do, which we can also talk about.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's interesting. I'll answer that, and then I'm curious as to what your take is as a player, because, I view it as hugely beneficial for our whole program, which is obviously Tyler's goal as the head coach. And then, for those hours, certainly, it's my goal as well. We certainly believe that a high tide rises all boats and all that kind of stuff. And we feel like, we've identified some specific things that the world in general is doing at a high level. And so we're trying to add those things into, our top teams' repertoire a little bit. I get the viewpoint that, like, hey, these are my competitors, like indoors, totally different. I can be competing against you as an outside hitter, but if you beat me out, I'm still on the squad and we're still fighting for the same goal and all that stuff. Right. But beach is different in that if you beat me out, I'm over here and I don't get to play in the tournament maybe, and you do, and blah, blah, blah. So I get that aspect of it, that it's weird in a sense to help your competitors out or whatever. But my retort to that, to people who offer that opinion, is if you perceive yourself as having an advantage over me, like just today, you feel like you're 20% better than me as a volleyball player or whatever. If we go into the same training, why is it that we automatically assume as players that now I'm going to bridge that gap? I'm going to make up that gap all of a sudden. Like, why don't you just get better at the same rate I do and you maintain that 20% advantage, right?
Yeah.
That's the mentality I feel like we should have as competitors, but we like to get into this, like, I don't want to show them all my cards, and we get into that sort of vibe, right? That's why I'm curious what your take is as a player.
I mean, in the beginning of my career, I was more bought into that for sure. Bought into the side of, like, I got to do everything I can to beat this guy. I don't want to show them anything. What if they see this drill or or see certain skill of mine and how I work on it and be like, oh, that's how he does that. But over time, I just, like, don't buy it anymore.
Yeah.
I'm totally bought. First of all, I love the idea of us. I'd like to go to FIVBs and tournaments and feel like I'm part of Team USA.
Right.
And ideally, I'd like to go cheer for my other fellow Americans.
Right.
That'd be cool to me to be able to go out there and, like, let's go USA. Go to matches when we're not playing, which I plan on trying to do a little bit more of, rather than, like, last quad, which was basically just like, F Jake and Casey.
Right. Well, I get that. It's very tough when you're at the tournaments. I don't in any way expect that other teams, because it would seem disingenuous, right? If you're there cheering for a guy, like, let's say hypothetically you're out of the tournament already and you're cheering for a guy to get on the podium, which is now going to extend the lead they have over, we're all trying to get to the Olympics. And you've been on the wrong side of being a very, very good and highly ranked team, but slightly behind two other teams from our country, and country quotas keep you out of the Olympics. So it's hard for you to cheer for those guys under those circumstances. But
and no one will.
No one will.
Right.
And see, to me, that's not your responsibility, but we can train together.
Totally.
And it's not the entirety of our training. It's just supplemental, as Tyler says repeatedly, right? We're just trying to add skills to everyone's playbook.
I'm concerned now about how good can I be. I don't give a crap about where the other teams fall on that.
Right.
And the way for me to be as good as I can be is by playing against. If I can go train against Jake and Taylor all the time, I guarantee I'm going to get better. Yep. They're probably going to get better too. Great. We go back on the world tour and we can be dominant again. The U.S. can be dominant again. That feels good. It does not feel good to see Brazil dominating the world tour and the U.S. like not even in the top 10 or something. Not that that's been the case, but pretty close.
Right.
So I'm more bought into that. So, like, let's get better. Let's all just work on getting as good as we can be and forget worrying about where the other teams fall. If they're better than us, then great. But at the end of the day, I know that me training against them made me better.
Right. To me, that's the right mentality.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I
want to be the
helps.
best I can be and go out and play the best I can play. Because what else can you really do?
Right.
You want to win because you were good, but also you hamstrung the other team somehow.
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
like it's weird. So that's a perfect.
And if someone does take something out of my book, then now they're challenging me to one up it, right? Like
Right.
gain the same amount as I got to gain the same amount as they gain.
Right.
They've gained 5% on me. I got to get that 5% back, and I think that's the only way to go about it. So I'm super bought into the whole system. I'm very grateful that like you think that way, because now I get to hear some of your input at practice. Patty Dodd, Tyler, a bunch of coaches are coming out and doing it. And yeah, I love it. I think Tyler's got a really tough job. I don't even know if he can define what it is yet. Like he's been having to like make it up, it seems like.
Right.
Because when he first came in, it's like, what? You want?
Well, I think they finally named him the head coach because it was like coaching director or something.
Yeah.
But now it's the head coach, which is a little bit more official.
I like that.
It allows, it's more proper, I think. It allows him, I think, some ability within the USA Volleyball organization to request some things.
Right.
If you just have this abstract title, it's hard to request funding for this. But if you're the head coach, you can say, like, look, John Sparrow or Karchi gets this as the head coach for his team and his team. So I would like this for my team. If you're like the director of whatever, they can go like, what the hell does that mean? And why do we need to pay for it?
Right.
Right. The other, just on the coaching subject, the thing I like about these USA practices is it helps us as coaches as well, because it's this collaborative effort, because that whole I'm going to hide my cards and I think I have the magic pill and all that stuff fully exists in the coaching realm, in the very, very small beach volleyball coaching realm. Like every guy and girl thinks they know the secret, and like you can't come to my practice and see what I mean, you've been to plenty of practices. Nobody's doing anything earth-shattering.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like this drill where you touch 5 balls with your elbow and all that stuff isn't changing the world of beach volleyball or affecting your team's success failure rate drastically, right?
Yeah.
But how can we work together to become better coaches as a unit for the betterment of USA Volleyball as a whole? So I like that element of it too.
Yeah. And I think, let's say someone does come out with some training or like a style of play that everybody kind of picks up on. It's like, whoa, that works.
Yeah.
We're going to steal it. You just made the entire sport of beach volleyball better, if someone's able to even pull that off, right?
Well, that's kind of what we're doing. We're trying to do, right? We're identifying like, oh, hey, look at what the Volley Vikings did this year, and here's what Andy Mole's doing at the net with these enormous moves outside his body. We need to train that more into our blocking schemes. And Christian running around like digging balls on the move. We need to do that a little bit more as defenders if we want to be successful and be competitive with those guys who came out with something pretty new and torched everybody.
Right.
And I mean, that's how the sport always goes, right? Brazil comes out with something crazy. Gibb and Dante indoors are hammering bics.
Right.
And so now everybody goes to the bic, and now it's just a staple.
Right.
So how do we figure out how to combat that? And then, like you said, the entire level of the sport raises, and people are forced to make adjustments to that new level. And so it's this ongoing chess game.
You want to be the one, like at the end of your career, I think you're going to want to have been the one that pushed the sport, that was pushing that level and raising it and having everyone come up to it, and then maybe someone else does it, and, you know, be a part of that part of the sport rather than just kind of closed off in your bubble and worrying about what everyone else is going to do and if they're going to steal something from you or whatever.
Agreed.
Yeah. So I'm on board. I think the U.S. national team's going in a great direction. I think it was very, like, much a shit show in the beginning.
Yeah.
I felt kind of bad for Tyler, just like he's trying to do all this, you know, figure out what his job is, impact the national team as much as he can, but there's like so many things that like just didn't make sense, and everyone's like, no, that doesn't make sense to us, so we're not going to do it. Well, he's like, well, I have to do something here.
Right. Well, I think we're very fortunate because I think he's, not only an incredible student, of the game.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a big promoter of watching videos, studying your own game, other people's game, et cetera, et cetera. So he's ridiculously passionate about the sport, teaching the sport, learning everything about the sport. And then I think he's pretty visionary too about what he wants to do with this program. And so we're lucky that in such a relatively young guy, we have all those attributes.
Totally.
Yeah. And the other part of that, if we were to kind of distill it down to why does this program exist at all, we could probably realistically say it's because USA Volleyball at some point was going to implement this system where they're not just handing out money with no say-so over what happens to it.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Totally.
Because, I mean, for a long time, for, guys like Jake, guys like Phil, the somewhat older players, USA Volleyball wasn't involved at all. So if they played an FIVB, it was completely on their own. They had complete autonomy, but they had no support. And then so USA Volleyball got involved, gave some financial support, but these guys didn't want to relinquish autonomy. But now you have this weird system where somebody's writing a check and you're asking them to have zero input over what you do with that money. Like nowhere in life does that exist, really, right? USA Volleyball, I think, has done a nice job of respecting that they were sort of late to the game and allowing that autonomy to still exist. And we've kind of slowly moved into this hybrid zone.
Right.
And we're maybe even more slowly moving into a more structured zone where we have this national team system that more closely mirrors like an indoor type of a thing.
Yeah. What I'm wondering, do you think that we'll ever get to a point where USA, where if they don't select partnerships, would at least nudge players into, because like you said, like they're paying money in indoor. It's not like you can just like get a band together and we're like, all right, we're going to be the U.S. national team now.
Yeah, I don't know that they're ever going to force partnerships, because I'm not so sure that makes sense.
Other national teams do.
They have done that in the past. I mean, a lot of countries you don't have a ton of options, right?
Yeah, it's true.
Anders and Christian have Anders and Christian.
No,
they got a couple other good guys, but I mean that's certainly their best pairing.
Yeah.
But what I think the program will allow is, and we're already seeing it a little bit, is like Chase Buttinger is the perfect example. Guy comes in, phenomenal athlete, phenomenal volleyball player, but it's year one, so he has no points. How do we get him into situations where he can start being competitive, start getting not only those reps, but those points right away? And so you have to sort of, maybe take somebody who's been grinding to very little success for a couple years on the world tour, but's ahead of Chase in points.
Right.
You have to say, hey, look, I'm sorry. This guy is better than you. And we're putting time and resources and so forth into him and not you.
Yeah, and I mean, Kleinman's probably even a better example.
Yeah.
So she came from the
I thought
indoors.
mine was a good example. You're right.
No, I mean, that's a terrible example. No, but because she came right into the, like, we're used to, like, before, it was like points. It's all about points. Where are you on the rankings? And then obviously Sean's been trying to change the system for a while now. Kleinman came in and she's in USA right away, which you have to be on the points, right? We're like, whoa. All right,
it helped that they went and won their first tournament.
Right, but then that's my point. Like, they started giving her a little bit, a baseline of, there's someone that came from the international. They've proven that
they're
to a certain extent that they're a great athlete and have a chance to be really good at this.
Right.
So why would we make it hard on them? Obviously, they got to earn it, but they gave her access to the gym, some trainer time, blah, blah, blah. Partners with April, wins her first event, and USA is like, see, this is why we did it. Sorry that person that was number 12 ranked and got bumped down,
right?
But not sorry, because this is our whole goal, is to find the best athletes in the U.S. and
and that's what I mean by it more closely mirrors the indoor system, because the way it works with the indoor national team is I can be there for 10 years and Tri comes in tomorrow and lights me up in practice and shows that he's better, and tomorrow he's starting.
Yeah.
And it's just like, hey, thanks, but this guy's better. And boom, there's World League and Tri, you're starting. You know what I mean? But like, because we can't exactly do that because, like we can't just throw you right into the Stade 5-star
Right.
event, because of points and stuff. But we can say, hey, we're gonna pay for your trainer and give you gym time and all these other resources, and we're gonna send you to these tournaments so that we can accumulate some points for you, so you can get into those maybe a little more quickly than you would have been able to otherwise.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and the rub is, for every Alex and every Chase, there's somebody who seems like maybe they're going to be on that path and ends up not being on that path. And so they have to figure out what the appropriate amount of leeway to give those people is.
Yeah.
The appropriate amount of learning curve that you are trying to be patient through.
Yeah, right now, most recently, Carly Wopat is now in the system and getting coaching and training, and she is really new to the beach. I think she's only played in 3 events, so they're kind of taking a shot on her that we were just kind of talking about with climbing, because Carly was on the U.S. national team. So it's cool to see that they are taking shots on people, and it's worked out so far on the people that they've picked.
Yeah, she gives new meaning to the term flexing on people on the court. She's unreal. She was in USA practice today. She's partnered with Brittany this year, right? Hochelaar. And you see the rawness of just being out in the sand, especially on a windy day like it was today. But she's also thumping balls and affecting balls at the net. And it's not like these great athletes walk out there and look like fools.
Right.
You know what I mean? You see the potential there, and some of the beach-type touch plays, they're going to come with some time and some experience. She'll be real good, I think.
Yeah. And now you mentioned the a high tide lifts all boats type deal. So when you came on to the indoor national team, you sort of saw it at its peak, like with 2008. I think that was the first World League title we won indoors, right?
Yes.
And then we won gold medal, and then you're back in London in 2012. Where do you see us in terms of beach right now, where the U.S. stands relative to the world?
That's tough to say because we have some great teams. Is our program top to bottom as stacked as Brazil, for example? No, but nobody is, right? I don't even... the day in and day out stress that must exist trying to represent Brazil in an Olympic Games is insane. The girls that won the Hague are these 20-year-old girls that were nowhere last year, and then were they in the final of Vegas? They finished pretty strong.
That same team, they were in the final in China. They were in the final in.
So they're kind of new. They were in. So Rebecca she won the P1440 Top Guns thing. So they only played 4 main draws.
Yeah, they were in Vegas, right? I know she won that. That was the. Top Gun was the king of the beach.
What
thing.
were their names?
Rebecca Cavalcanti and Anna Patricia Silva.
That team was also in the finals in China when me and Trevor won.
Yeah,
and they won.
They just
they won that one
every final, and I didn't even know their names before.
Yep. Right, and the year before that in the Hague, Maria Antonelli and Carol came out of the qualifier, and they were in the finals against April and Alex. Yep. So Brazil is just churning out one new team after.
Well, yeah, and then you still have Barbara and Fernanda. You still have Agatha and Duda who won the World Tour finals last year.
Duda's 19.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
It's unreal. And so you go in that country, you go from being in the finals of a 4-star to maybe you're starting off your season in country quotas because this team has more recently overtaken you. It's insanity. But we certainly have, Phil and Nick are still playing. My guys had a pretty good season last year. You guys had a great season last year. So
all two
of them. Well, you kind of kept it rolling, right? So if you only played 2 and you win 2,
I know.
It's a good season.
I'm claiming
it. So we have some solid teams. It's hard to say that we're as stacked as a program as Brazil, but I think we're moving in the right direction.
I think it's yet to be seen. I can't claim that I'm clearly going to go out there and dominate the world as much as I want to. If it was Phil talking or something, then he could
more
everyone
correctly.
thinks that he can do what he's always done.
Yeah.
But I think the U.S. does have the potential to have those teams. We have to go prove it.
Right.
Guys like me and Trevor, Taylor's got to go prove it. Jake's got to prove it with Taylor. But we have the potential right now. I think maybe even more so than the last few years, in my opinion.
I agree.
And teams, I mean, there's been so many partner change-ups, so it's hard to know which team or two below the top three are going to do well. 3 or 4. But I think things are trending up for the U.S. and that whole national team vibe that Hildebrand's bringing in is a big part of it.
I know that we're running short on time for us. We don't want to keep you over time. But you mentioned your guys, Jake and Taylor, so I kind of want to circle back to them real quick before we have to go. I think that they might have been, I mean, they started out well and had a great season, but I also think they might have been the most improved team that the U.S. has. Like, what did you see for them in terms of growth that ended up, I mean, they were contending in every big tournament.
Well, late in the season, that was true. We had an interesting season in that we started off pretty decent. I mean, depending on, which half of the glass you look at. We went to Florida, won our pool. We beat, I think, Evandro and Andre, who were the reigning world champs, to win our pool there. But then we lost our first playoff match. The following tournament, we did the same thing. In Qatar, we beat Phil and Nick, actually, in our pool to win that, and then we lost and got 9th. So, those were good results, and then we're beating good teams to win our pool, but then we're not rolling into the playoffs and finishing higher. And then we had a couple slip-ups where we got some 17ths, and that actually sent us into a qualifier in Vienna. And that's where we ended up finishing 5th there, and then 4th in Stade, and we had a kind of a string of some good results. I think it's time on the court together, the comfort that comes with that and sort of just the chemistry that comes with that. Like I said, the guys have a really good vibe amongst themselves. One of the things that we did that I think benefited us a lot was try to encourage Taylor to be a little bit more vocal in pregame stuff. Let us know what you're thinking, because actually, Huntington Beach.
He talks.
If you corner him just right, if you have 2 guys over 40 and you can corner them. No, we lost to John Mayer and Trevor Crabb in Huntington Beach, and that was 25th actually, that finish. And we had gone into that match with a game plan that he went along with because we said it, and he didn't agree with it on any level. And so we sort of found that out later, and we said, hey, let's make sure that we don't let that happen again, because if you have strong feelings about something, we want to at least hear them so we can sort of discuss it. If we agree that we're going to go another direction, then we can all be on the same page. At least we don't want you out there, thinking in the back of your head, oh, that ball went down, and that's kind of where I thought I should have been, but we decided I was going to be over here, or whatever it is, And so I think that was a beneficial thing for our team to have him a little bit in a more proactive type of a role, because Jake, with his wealth of experience, is actually something I love about him is he's a guy, he wants to identify people that he trusts and wants to work with, and then he wants them to just point him in the right direction. And he's very, very good at taking direction, following direction. He wants to kind of take his mind out of it and go do what he does and just be pointed in the right direction. He does that in the weight room. Got a guy, Tim Paolo. We just got Christian. Hartford. That's awesome. He was down at the beach today. And so he identifies the people that he wants to work with, that he trusts, and then lets them do their thing, which, not everyone has that ability. Not everyone has that approach. And so Taylor is obviously somebody he has a tremendous amount of respect for and trust in. And so Taylor kind of contributing his viewpoints to things really helps us out a lot, because he can direct the big fella from not only scouting report meetings, but on the court as well.
Yeah. And then last question for you. This is a question we ask every guest.
Okay.
If you had to give any piece of advice to an up-and-coming beach volleyball player, what would that piece of advice be?
Any piece of advice? Oh, that's a good question. Man, there's so many little ones, but I work with these girls every now and then down in Huntington. They're 13 and one of them's 6'1". It's astounding. Like studs are. The other one's left-handed and is just like chopping people up. But one of the things I focus on with them more recently is serving. All right, because we hear these kind of cliches all the time, coaching cliches like, hey, be comfortable being uncomfortable and can control what you can control and all that stuff. Like, those things are cliche, but they're also very true, right?
Right.
As far as the control what you can control thing, I think oftentimes, and I'll kind of circle back to what I was saying with my guys about narrowing your focus.
Yeah.
We don't have as much attention to detail as I think we're capable of having. So as it pertains to serving, am I going back there and just trying to make it? Or am I going in with a plan? I want to serve, try short to his sideline because that's going to get me, X result. And I try and do that because especially serving is the only thing I get to control.
Right.
Like start to finish. And so the way I explain it to, even little kids all the way up to my guys is things are going to typically snowball one way or the other. If I do something good, it tends to snowball in my favor. If I don't pay attention and I don't pass this free ball well or whatever, it unfortunately snowballs the wrong way for me, right? And obviously I want that to snowball in my direction. So control what you can control and attention to detail are huge, huge things.
All right. Well, I know you got to run, so appreciate you coming on, hanging out with us. Good luck to you and Jake, Jake and Taylor this season, and hopefully we'll have you on again.
Yeah, man.
I would love it.
Sweet.
Thanks for having me, guys.
All right.
Thanks, sir.
Shoots.
Shoots.